Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to the MGMA podcast. I'm Daniel Williams, Senior Editor at MGMA and host of the MGMA Podcast Network. And today we have a treat for you. We are celebrating National Medical Group Practice Week. And all week we are going to be talking with practice managers, talking to them about their careers, their challenges, their successes. And today we've got Andre Beach. He's a mid-career healthcare operations leader. He's local here to Colorado, so he is in studio with us. So Andre, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, now you and I were talking offline. You have one of the most unique stories I've ever heard. You got started in healthcare at a really young age. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so 13 years old. My mom was the clinic manager of an OBGYN group down in Colorado Springs. They had a one-woman shop in their medical records department. She needed some help, so I was happy to make a little extra cash. So she put me in there, and that's where everything began for me. So
never looked back. That is so cool. What were you doing? Were you filing records and things?
Yeah, if something was missing, I would go find it. I was looking for notes, charts. After a patient was seen, I would make sure that the charts were back together for the next visit, all of those kind of things. So a lot of times they would just send me on whatever errands were necessary.
Yeah.
So a lot of running around.
Well, that is such a cool story, and you got to spend that really kind of cool time with your mom. I mean, what was that like, learning from her, just her leadership traits or anything else about the way she conducted herself at work? What'd you learn from her?
You know, she was a really respected leader. So she was an MA. She later got her master's in public health. So she was really a jack of all trades, knew a lot of things in the clinic. Accountability was a big part of it because there was always this underlying, when we went home, don't you embarrass me, right? So that was always one of the things. So I think that's something I applied to my career. Is accountability is a really big part of it.
Okay.
But at the same time, my mom and I have always been close. So it was great to get to spend that time with her and help shape kind of how I am as a leader.
Yeah, that's so cool. And so you brought that up, so I've got to follow up here. When you got home, other than her saying, don't screw things up there, did y'all talk shop, or would you just kind of talk about normal mom and kid stuff at that point?
I'd pick her brain a little bit and just kind of try to get the understandings and the inner workings of things. I didn't really get the impact of how everything I was doing. A lot of times it was just like putting a puzzle together for me, right? I liked running around. I liked making things whole. That was all good. Sometimes she would give me a little bit of info and talk a little bit about what was going on in clinic. So I started to, glean a little bit of the inner workings of management at that early age.
Yeah.
But we kept a good balance.
Okay. Now, you did share with us before we went live here that you've got a 1 and a 3-year-old, right?
Yes.
And are you grooming them where they will one day
jump
into they're 1 and 3, so you've got a little bit of time to wait there.
Right. Yeah. Right now we're more focused on some TV shows, slides, playgrounds. That's kind of where it's at. So I don't know if healthcare is in the future for them. My wife was a dancer for a long time, so I think the girls might get into that.
That is so cool.
Yeah. So we'll see if healthcare is in the cards, but who knows? We can start them young. It works out. So we'll see.
For sure. It's certainly worked out for you. And so we have you on the show here for this special week to recognize practice leaders. You started helping your mom out there, and you stayed in healthcare. So talk about the evolution. What are some of the highlights you might want to share with us as you've taken on more and more important operational roles in medical practices?
Yeah. So, for me, I really like problem solving.
Okay.
I think that's been at the core of what I was doing. My first promotion I ever got was I came back to that medical records job after being gone for college, just as a temp job. Okay. So I went back to the same clinic, and after a month or so, there was an audit coming, and they told me that if I could prepare for this audit in 30 minutes, they'd make me the lead of the department. So I said, let's do it. And so I did it. They made me lead. And after a decade or so at that clinic, I actually left that clinic as the director of operations. So during that time, I got the opportunity to essentially supervise, run, or assist every department. So I got really good hands-on experience at every level for healthcare. So I really enjoyed it.
That's neat. Let's talk about that then. You talked about taking on that leadership role early. Talk about what is different about being a leader in a practice and being someone who, let's go back to your 13-year-old self where you were clearly being given direction and stuff. So it's not just a different job, but there's some different roles and responsibilities. What's expected of a leader in a medical practice?
Yeah, so for me, I consider myself a really relational leader. So beforehand, it was focusing on the task. And then in leadership, it becomes focusing on the people. I very much think that there's the nuances of influence are really important versus the nuances of just authority. And I think if you can find the sweet spot between the two, that's when leadership is really effective. So I think it taught me a lot of humility in my approach that I kind of worked my way up through every level, and I think that's what made me most effective.
That is really cool. So let's think about this for a moment. This week, we are recognizing medical practice leaders at different stages of their career. I find it almost hard to believe, but you started at 13, so you're categorized in that mid career medical practice leader. How has leadership evolved for you? Going from, let's say, a teenager to a true early careerist after you went to school, and now moving into that mid-career stage of your life in your career. What's that been like? How is it? What would you say is the biggest difference or the biggest evolution for you as a leader as you move into that mid-career state? Because quite frankly, your goals can change. You can say, okay, I'm going to go to college, and then maybe I'm going to get a master's. Maybe I'm going to go in this direction or that direction. So I'll let you just kind of paint with a brush on this canvas here. What would you like to share with us about that?
Yeah, so as I grew as a leader, I talked a little bit about influence, and I think my mindset went from leadership is a little bit less about control, which is how I perceived it at the beginning. And then it is more about influence and the people and what I can do and how I can motivate others. I was used to being the subject matter expert before I was in leadership. So I was the guy. Everyone went to me for things. But in leadership, there's a series of people who I might be pointing to who are the experts. So how do you motivate your experts? How do you keep people engaged? How do you not disenfranchise people? And I think leading with some sincerity. People put a lot of their life into their work. We spend a lot of time together, time away from our families. And in the healthcare industry, it's a service industry, right?
Yeah.
We're giving back to the community. We're giving back to people. And sometimes there's a burden that comes along with that. Right. It's a dynamic, ever-changing industry. And my job is to create clarity amongst chaos. And so I think I have a very much servant leadership model. So that's what I owe to my staff. It's what I owe to our patients, and it's what I owe to myself. And trying to find a balance between those things is really important for me.
Okay. Now you said a key word there. You said it's a service industry. And when we were talking offline, you mentioned, if I want to get this right here, you work at a clinic that is in the arthritis field.
Correct. Yeah, rheumatology group.
Rheumatology group.
Yep, I'm the COO of the Denver Arthritis Clinic.
And that really connects with me. I've got a lot of family members, a grandfather, a dad who really struggled with arthritis. And quite frankly, we've got some genetic stuff with hips, and I'm beginning to feel some hip stuff here. And so I really have a connection there. And I wanted to get you to tell us about that, because you're going to see patients over a long period of time who are going to be coming in there again and again for treatment and consultation. What's that like to build those relationships and to really provide service for those patients?
Yeah, there's a significant relational aspect to that in terms of you have a lot of long-standing relationships, and there's a lot of trust that goes into that. And one of the things that I always tell our staff is, when these patients get a diagnosis, they're becoming part of a larger community, and that includes these organizations that are set up to help them. It's not just the healthcare provider, and everything that happens, their experience is more than the 30 minutes, an hour, however long they're with the provider. It impacts their families, their friends. So making sure that we're well in tune with the community and all the support aspects, because they come to us, they expect us to point them in the right direction for what they need. And for us, it's an honor and a privilege to be able to be on that journey with them, because sometimes it's just scary. And for some of these conditions, you're not necessarily curing it, right? You're treating it. You're helping people live and manage their best lives with it. So we take a lot of responsibility in that.
We'd like to take a quick break to remind you about the exclusive offers available during National Medical Group Practice Week. These limited time sales on education, certification, and membership were thoughtfully curated to support your growth and help you take the next step in your career this year. You can learn more at mgma.com/NMGP-week. Now, back to our conversation. Let's turn the page just a little bit. So at MGMA, we do provide tools, we do provide training, we do provide education, certifications, different things like that. Tell us about your journey with MGMA, maybe where that journey began and any growth through MGMA training that you've experienced.
Right. So when I decided that healthcare was going to become my career, I felt like I needed to make an intentional pivot, because my bachelor's degree is actually in anthropology.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's so cool.
So I thought I was going to be the next Indiana Jones and do some archaeology and things. But I made this pivot. I really learned that I enjoyed it, and I knew that I needed something formal, really, some formalized training. So I got my certification, and so I'm a CMPE, which is Certified Medical Practice Executive. I've had that for a little over a decade now, I believe. Okay. So that just helped. There, MGMA offers a really robust body of knowledge. Yeah. There's so many different aspects to healthcare leadership. So I needed to make sure that my knowledge was vast enough so that I could support each of the departments that rolled up to me. Because the worst thing that could have happened to me as a leader is when someone comes to me and they're speaking over my head. You can tell when you're talking to someone and they're just not quite grasping it. I don't feel like I can support people if I can't at least articulate what's going on and help troubleshoot with them. So that helped me really be able to relate to all of the different departments at a different level. So it's been really helpful for my career. And then MGMA offers a ton of resources for networking and education. And so taking advantage of those webinars, and then even service. I've been a board member for the Colorado chapter of MGMA. I just wrapped up my presidency for the Colorado chapter.
Congrats.
I just wrapped up a year-long term there. So it's been an honor to kind of really get involved and help other managers and leaders grow. That's been great.
Let's stay there then, because I think what we're finding, we're doing a lot of communication with those MGMA members, because we do have people like yourself who take full advantage of all these resources, and then they get to be on a podcast with us. But, there is so much out there, but then when we'll do a survey, we'll find a very low percentage or they just don't know things are available to them. What would you say to your fellow MGMA members who just may not know that there's some of the resources, some of these webinars, some of these other tools and tips that are either online or elsewhere? What would you say to them just so they know they're available, and then to take full advantage of them as well?
I would say make the time. A lot of times there's this illusion, and I know it can seem crushing, this pressure of working in healthcare and everything's so busy and I can never find time away. My clinic's always so crazy. The problems are going to be there. The challenges are always going to be there. So the more you can find an opportunity to step away and see other people who are facing the same problems, it makes you feel a bit better. A lot of times people say, my clinic is crazy, and you feel like it feels very isolating. So knowing that there truly is a community around you and other people who, whether it's just to commiserate or share ideas, having access to all of that is so important. So sometimes it's really important to take a minute, get your head above water for a little bit and say, okay, let me survey the landscape and see what is out there so that I can go apply these so that your day-to-day experience maybe isn't so crazy.
Yeah. So things do get messy in practices. They get difficult. There's friction. There's challenges. How do you remain calm amid chaos? What is your go-to? Are there processes, tools, techniques, mentors? What do you do when you just I got to compartmentalize, I got to slow things down? and make things work for me, so they make sense and it's not just that nonstop stress?
So first, I always try to remember my personal priorities, right?
Okay.
I always say that a problem at work is a challenge and a problem at home is a problem.
Yeah.
That helps me kind of separate what's really crucial. And then beyond that, I also take a lot of pride in being a leader. I know that there's eyes on me all the time. So I always use the duck metaphor. People are always looking at me. There's always eyes on me, right? So under the water, feet going crazy, paddling, and on top, just cool and coasting along. So I think that's a big thing is I carry the responsibility that people are going to look at how I react to things and they'll react accordingly. So normally, my team rarely see me get flustered over anything because I don't want to pass that stress on to them. That doesn't mean things don't get to me because it happens.
Oh, yeah.
But I think being able to appropriately compartmentalize between what's really going to spoil over into my personal life and what I can control and what I can't control, and then just taking a second, take a breath, and work on a solution.
Mm-hmm. Final question then. You're a mid-careerist, as we said, but we're going to have medical practice leaders at all stages of their career listening. Let's zero in on those early careerists. What are some steps, choices that maybe you would redo, but it sounds like everything's been going really well. But for those early careerists listening, what's some advice you want to give them?
I would say work on managing your imposter syndrome because it's real. It's real. To this day, I have it to this day. And so many people are riddled with this fear of this, I shouldn't be in this role. And so much in healthcare, people are homegrown talent. You were promoted because you were still there or because somebody left. I call that the chaos promotion. Right? It happens. It happened to me a ton of times, but using your resources like MGMA so that you have the skills to back that up. But doing that and then saying yes to opportunity. I never felt like I had the entitlement to turn something away because I felt that I was better than something. It's important for everyone to know their worth. But if an opportunity came my way, I absolutely did it. So that way when a bigger opportunity came, I was the obvious choice. It was inevitable, right? They were kind of like, you're willing to play ball. You're always willing to do this. So seize the opportunity. And I think it's gone right for me so far.
It sure has. And I'm so glad that you brought up that idea, the imposter syndrome, because, so many of us feel that. I've been asked to speak at some places and I go, well, can I speak on being, the imposter syndrome? Because I feel like that's something so many people can identify with. And it's such great advice for someone like yourself who's had a lot of success to provide for others. I said that was the last question, but I want to end on one more thing because you gave such a great personal note of really having that work-life balance, having that 1 and 3-year-old and getting to share life and do all kinds of fun things with them. What's one thing you'd like to share then? Because you do put all of yourself into that work life, but saving something in the tank so you can go have fun with that 1 and 3-year-old. What's something about the work-life balance you might want to share with us?
I feel really strongly that if you give all of yourself to work and you don't leave anything in the tank, you're not bringing the best version of yourself to work. So I need to make sure that I can go home and I can enjoy the time with my wife, enjoy the time with my kids. That's what fills my cup. So that helps me bring the best version of myself. And then when I bring the best version of myself to work, the patients benefit, the staff benefit, everyone does. So those are just boundaries that I need to know that I need to have. So that's been really essential for me.
Well, Andre, thank you so much for sharing all this information with us today.
That's a pleasure. Thanks again for having me.
All right. Well, everyone, just want to remind you, we've been talking to Andre Beach, and this is part of National Medical Group Practice Week. Be on the lookout because we're going to be talking to other early careerist and a late careerist later this week. So be on the lookout for it. And thank you all for being MGMA podcast listeners.